Earthquakes topple our hospitals, cutting off medical services for survivors when they need them most. Cyclones and hurricanes blow away our clinics, crippling basic healthcare and lifelines. Wars wipe out hospitals and health centres. Badly designed and poorly managed hospitals can make epidemics of communicable disease even worse. Last year, more than 200 million people around the world were affected by disasters. Many of them were no longer able to get the health and medical care they desperately needed to survive and safeguard their health.
Alors, souvent on travaille dans des conditions qui ne sont pas faciles.
They are almost destroyed. We don't have a setup, no record, no laboratory, no drugs. So we need to work from the very beginning, from the very scratch, first thing.
The real tragedy is that we already know what needs to be done to save lives, protect investment and strengthen communities. We must build and prepare our hospitals and health centres to not only withstand disasters, but to function when they are most needed.
Every time we have a major earthquake or floods and we see hospital facilities, clinics, even the smallest one destroyed, health workers killed, patients killed, you realize that there is something you can do. You don't have to accept that these things happen.
But natural disasters and wars are not the only things that make hospitals unsafe. During outbreaks of communicable disease, hospitals can become a source of infection for patients, staff and visitors. Disruption to routine care can interrupt services to people with mental illness, those needing help for childbirth, cancer care or dialysis, as well as HIV treatment.
Today the crises are multiplying, and it means that the health system needs to be ready to respond to all this type of crisis.
Back in the 80s, the people of Mexico City learned firsthand just how devastating a disaster can be. The city was rocked by a massive earthquake in 1985.
The loss of several hospitals included even children's hospital, and there were a lot of suffering, and also these hospitals became a trap for their own patients and health workers, but also they became incapacitated to provide services in the emergency.
The 1985 quake was a catalyst for change in Mexico. With the scars of the earthquake still fresh, Mexicans decided not just to rebuild hospitals, but to build back better. Hospital managers told architects, engineers and builders how they wanted their facilities to function when an emergency occurs and in its aftermath. Measures to stabilize building foundations and other safety features were introduced while the plans were still on the drawing board. China, too, learned the hard way. In May 2008, a severe earthquake killed more than 85,000 people. More than 11,000 health facilities of all types were damaged or destroyed. Over 250,000 people were injured, with many survivors having to be evacuated to other areas for treatment.
I think we need to be more and more prepared, and there's an overall recognition nowadays that responding to emergency is one thing. We know how to do it, we don't always do it well, but I think be prepared for response is so important. The problem is no one wants to put money to something that may not happen.
Sadly, emergencies do happen in communities and within health facilities themselves. Wars and internal conflict also put healthcare and health workers at risk.
The most important things is that healthcare workers recognise both their rights and their responsibilities in armed conflict. But more important than that is that the parties to the conflict must recognise that all health facilities are protected under humanitarian law.
Health facilities must also be there to treat patients from large-scale traffic accidents, bushfires, heat waves and extreme cold weather, as well as chemical spills. Health facilities collect blood and carry out laboratory tests. They also need power, lots of clean water, and a reliable supply of medicines to provide health services for communities.
For earthquakes, for example, if we build a hospital that can resist, if you build it properly, it stands. During the earthquake in Pakistan, when the health facilities were destroyed, it has killed also the health personnel.
Not only must our hospitals remain standing in the face of disasters and crises, they must also keep working to provide life-saving health services. For this, we must make sure health workers are safe and able to do their jobs.
To deliver an effective service, we require not only a building, but we require healthcare workers that function. We require medical and nursing, clinical staff, the support staff, the administrative staff, the ambulance drivers. All of these must function to deliver an effective health service in an emergency, but also on a day-to-day basis.
We know that preparing and planning for emergencies can make communities safer and save lives.
In 1970, in Bangladesh, there was a tropical cyclone with a storm surge which killed over 100,000 people. Huge disaster. Since then, there's been several similar tropical cyclones, similar strength, and the number of casualties has been of the order of a few thousand. It's still too many. But at the same time, we have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Why? Early warnings, they've improved, they are in place. These early warnings are communicated to the people. There are telecommunication systems in place to reach out to the people. Shelters were built which can cope with any kind of disaster, any kind of wind. And people know what to do because there is training organized on a regular fashion. Not only training for the population, but training for the local authorities, for all the people who have to make decisions at all levels.
Building hospitals in locations which are known to be at less risk from disasters, or making existing health facilities safer through retrofitting, is surprisingly cost-effective. In some countries, up to 80% of the health budget is spent on hospitals and other health facilities. A large amount of this is in its equipment, which needs to be secured. Rebuilding a hospital that has been destroyed can wind up costing double the initial investment on the facility.
We have the technologies that could make our health facilities and hospitals disaster resistant, able to function in emergencies. So there is hope of improvement.
It's very important to create awareness about safe hospitals and about hospitals being structurally safe. We do feel that it's very important for architects to know that when they plan buildings. It's important for planners to know that when they make budgets for these buildings.
World Health Day 2009 urges governments and decision-makers around the world to look at essential steps to make hospitals safe in emergencies. Develop national policies for safe health facilities. Select sites and build with safety in mind. Assess safety of existing facilities. Protect workers, equipment and supplies, and ensure essential services. Build partnerships with the community. Develop emergency response plans and test them before the emergency occurs. Train health workers to respond, and learn and apply lessons from the past. We must never forget that when emergencies strike, people rely on health facilities for survival. We need hospitals resilient and able to function in times of disaster. Making hospitals safe in emergencies will save lives and protect health.